Hey kids, it's Becca. I'm looking forward to bringing you the lesson this week, and I hope that everybody's doing well. Um, I know Pastor Todd has been doing his sermons on Moses, and so I wanted to tell you a story about Moses today, talk to you a little bit about him. Moses and the burning bush. You may have heard this story before, but there's a little bit different approach that I want to take to it. Just a little bit. Um, every week, my family has been getting together and having a little cookout. So we have a little fire pit that we use, and that kind of made me think about doing this lesson today. We had one this afternoon, so that made me think about doing this lesson about Moses and the burning bush. But before I start talking about Moses, I want you to think about something that you think of when you think something when you hear the word scary. What do you think of? And a lot of times, maybe you're thinking of a zombie or a monster or werewolf or a ghost, or maybe you're afraid of the dark or spiders or anything like that. Maybe you think of those kind of things when you think of something scary. And those things can certainly be scary to us. But sometimes there's something that's even more scary to us than bugs and monsters and the dark and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes what is scary is doing something new. And I don't know about you, I know a lot of you are really brave and often not afraid to try new things. But I can be. I know sometimes I get nervous or get a little bit afraid when something new is happening, like a first day of school or moving to a new house or making a new friend or trying something new to eat. Maybe those things can be a little bit scary. Well, when we don't know something, we can be afraid of it, as with new things. We like to be comfortable. We like to be with things that are familiar and do things that are familiar. So it can be difficult to do different things, to do new things. But Moses, he was afraid of trying something new, but he did it. And he realized when he did it that trying new things can be really fun and really exciting. And I keep looking down because I have my notes over here. So just want to let you know that why I keep looking over here. But so Moses, he was presented with something new and he was scared, but he did it anyway. So let's talk about how God helped Moses be less afraid. Moses was a shepherd, and he'd been a shepherd for about 40 years. And I know we've talked about shepherds and sheep in our other lessons before, but you may remember that shepherds lived in the wilderness and often stayed wherever their sheep were. So that's where they lived, that's where they slept and ate and was wherever their sheep were. So Moses wasn't really living in a house. He was living outside with the sheep so he could take care of them. He was happy there. He was with his family. He liked what he was doing and he was happy. He didn't really want to be anything other than a shepherd. He liked what he was doing. But one day, Moses was out with his sheep and he comes across a burning bush. And I don't know if you've ever seen a burning bush, but I know I haven't. And I think that in and of itself could be a little bit scary. But let me show you my quick depiction of a burning bush that I made right before I did this video. So here's what I imagine the burning bush might have looked like. But Moses comes across this bush that's on fire. And like I said, I think that in and of itself would be scary. But God was speaking to Moses through this bush. And God was asking Moses to do something new. You see, Moses, he wasn't just an ordinary shepherd. You may have learned about him in other lessons that he was special. He was raised in the palace of the Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. He knew the Pharaoh since he was a child, and this made him have special skills and the ability to be able to lead God's people, to be able to lead God's people, the Israelites, to be able to lead them out of Egypt, which we may talk about later on. So God, through this burning bush, was asking Moses to take on this task of leading people out of Egypt, leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Now that wouldn't have been just a small group of people. That was a lot of people. Imagine a town, the town where you live in, or imagine going to a sports event in the arena, how full that is. It would be people like that, more people than that. So this was a lot of people, and God was asking Moses, who was used to being in the field with his sheep and his family, to lead the Israelites out of Egypt. That's a big task. That would be a big undertaking for anybody. And Moses, he was afraid to do this. But he didn't want to leave, Moses was afraid to do this. He didn't want to leave his lifestyle. Like I said before, he liked being a shepherd, and that was what he wanted to do. But God had other plans for Moses, and God wanted to do something great through Moses. And even though this seemed really scary and was a new thing and something that Moses had never really prepared himself for in his life or planned to do in his life, he realized that if he didn't go, that he might miss out on something really amazing and really exciting. So Moses, when, we usually hear stories about him, we think about him as a really great leader, and he would have had great qualities of a leader, or he wouldn't have been chosen to help guide the Israelites out of Egypt. And even though he was a really great leader, he was still scared. He was still scared to do this, and he had to step out of what was comfortable to him. And maybe you've had to do that before. Maybe you've had to go to a new school and you didn't know anybody there and you were afraid to do that. Or maybe you got a new pet at home and you were afraid of taking care of that and having something different in your house. Maybe somebody new moved in next door and you were nervous to make a new friend. But just like you and I, that God can help us have courage to do new things. He helped Moses. God helped Moses to have the courage to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, and he became a hero. So when we're faced with new things or big things like this that we're unfamiliar with, we just have to ask God to help us be brave. And even though we want to be brave, I also want to say that it's okay to be afraid. I know that I'm afraid of new things, and there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're afraid to try something new, don't worry about that. There's something wrong with it. It's just being willing and trusting God enough to help you to find the courage to do something new. So maybe this week, as you're faced with a new challenge, or some new kind of food, or whatever new thing or different thing could be happening in your life, this week try to think about praying and asking God to help you have the courage and to be brave and to do what it is that he wants you to do, no matter how afraid you are. And that fear might not totally go away. It sometimes doesn't go away until after we've done the new thing. And that's okay too. So don't think that you can't be afraid, because that's very normal. But when we are afraid, we should turn to God and ask him, like I said, to help us find the courage and to be brave and willing to try this new thing. Because like Moses, even though he was afraid and it was something he didn't want to do, it turned out to be this really amazing experience. Now, it was a difficult experience. It was difficult tasks that he took on extremely. And so that doesn't mean that whatever we try new is going to be easy all the time. But God will help us. God will give us the skills, the information, the knowledge. He'll teach us whatever it is that we need to know and help us so that we can do what it is that he's asking us to do. So if you would like to make a burning bush, all I did was draw the stump and the limbs, and then put some, cut out some leaves and some fire shapes out of paper. So if you make a burning bush or even draw one, maybe yours looks really different from mine. Maybe you don't have leaves, or maybe you have a lot more fire than I do, or however you see this burning bush, you could make one this week and show me. I'd love to see, if you do make one, I'd love to see what you come up with. So before I close, before I leave you, let me say a quick prayer with you, and then I will close from there. But let's close our eyes and bow our heads like we do at church, and I'll say a quick prayer with you. Dear God, help us to remember to trust you, and to remember that you're with us when we try new things, and to not be afraid of those new things because you're with us. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Well, kids, I know I say this every time I do a video, but I hope I get to see you soon. I got to see some of you last week on Mother's Day at the ice cream social, and that was really exciting to see everybody. But I think about you often, and I know I look forward, and all your other teachers and pastors look forward to the day that we can all be back together again. But in the meantime, I hope you're behaving. I hope you're listening to mom and dad and doing everything you need to do for them and for your teachers, for school. And I know that's a new challenge for some of you, doing school online. So hopefully you're doing everything you need to do to wrap up the school year so that you can have fun for the summer. If you need anything, feel free to make a comment and reach out to me or Pastor Todd. If you have anything that you want us to pray about, I know that we would be happy to do that for you. So like I said, I look forward to seeing you soon.